Catherine Delahunty.
Kia ora, Mr Chair. Kia ora koutou katoa, ngā mihi nui. It's
Kia ora.
an interesting bill, this one. The Green Party has issues with a number of sections of it. The joint principles proposal, the after-school care ideas, the school hours flexibility, the tertiary institutions being allowed to run charters, teachers training. These are all interesting issues that we robustly discussed at the Select Committee, and if we come away with some very good arguments as to why these changes were needed, I think that we would have been prepared to listen to those arguments. But unfortunately, we did get some good changes at the Select Committee, particularly around the home care numbers, but it didn't go far enough to allay our concerns in the Green Party that we could support some of these provisions. So starting with the joint principles, Mr Chair, again, supporting my colleague Chris Hipkins' comments, there are two layers to this. There's the philosophical and ideological reason why you might have joint principles, and then there's the practical application of the law. And on both counts, we have concerns. So we are not sure who has demanded this. We don't understand who's calling for joint principles. We didn't have submitters calling for it. But when it comes to the practical application, I have to agree with Chris Hipkins that we couldn't get an explanation as to how it was going to work with the issue of dual employment by more than one board. I think that's just common sense. These kind of questions about employment needed to be answered. We just needed to know how it was going to work, because there are a couple of rural areas where you might see it as being a good idea, but when boards are in conflict or have very different ideas about the employment of a principal, we need to know how it's going to work, and we didn't get an answer, so it was impossible to clarify that issue. On the broader question of the role of the principal, I think this is really important, because this government has made it very clear that they see the principal and the teacher as the key to the child's success. And we can debate that, and we could have many debates about whether poverty has impact on people's lives and how much imagination it takes to realise that if you're not feeding kids, they're probably not learning. But in terms of the educational leader of the school, if that person is divided between a number of sites, they will be a different type of leader, but it may not be the educational leader of that school. It may be that they are an entrepreneurial coordinator of a range of schools. But given that we've just seen government bring in the policies around the communities of learning, which are supposedly the mechanisms that are going to bring schools together, I don't understand why we'd have joint principles. I don't see the necessity for that. There's a clear opportunity for schools to collaborate through the communities of learning. And there was a lot of debate about it, but it's a system that is yet to be evaluated, and that's just starting. But why? Why joint principles for many of our schools? I, like many of the people in the Select Committee, visit school after school after school, meet with principals, and they tell me that being part of their local, very local community, having very strong hands-on relationships with their families, and having very strong relationships with other educational professionals in their area because of the needs of their very particular student population, and having very strong educational leadership of their teachers, some of whom need a lot more support than others. That is their role. And if that is divided amongst a number of schools, it will become a weaker role. It might be more efficient, quote unquote, but it will not be the educational leader of that community. And then you have the schools where there are huge social problems that school's working to address. And I've been to a number of schools. I'm thinking of one in particular where the principal was like the captain of a ship that could any day hit the rocks, but was very clearly staying in the stream because of that professional leader. So joint leadership puts at risk the delicate fabric that some of these schools manage in order to survive. So that's one issue. We don't support that. Then there's the issue of school hours flexibility, and there are claims in the bill that this will only happen if there's consultation, and we had quite a debate about the nature of consultation. Consultation is a fascinating word. As I've probably said before, my father says consultation, or he said, he's gone now, A cross between a con and an insult, consultation often is, because it's one way in which certain interests, Mr. Chair.
Catherine Delahunty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certain interests can be listened to, but some voices who are not at the table, as we often talk about in this House, are not heard. And so I wasn't confident after reading the clauses of the bill around the consultation for changing school hours that everybody would be heard, that all their needs would be heard. And that's what concerns me, is that you can send out, and I'm a grandmother who collects a child every Monday from a school, every Monday that I can, and I read the school notices, and I realise that my privilege is understanding the education system and understanding the issue around flexible hours. And for me, and for others, flexible working hours for schools is actually quite disturbing, because many of us have these lives delicately balanced around 3 o'clock. We are balanced around 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. You know, my daughter's job is balanced around those hours. My life's balanced around them. The family's life is balanced around them. Our child is balanced around them. And in order to change those hours, there has to be a really, really good reason, and we didn't hear it. There's already flexibility in the law around before and afternoon, but actually to make it wide open puts at risk some of those very frustrating experiences for teachers and for parents. Because I do believe in innovation and change. I do think we should be open to it, but I don't think that changing the school hours, particularly for our families who are running all over the place with more than one child, I just can't see the benefit of it. Quite honestly, I don't want to be Auckland-centric, but try to get across Auckland at 3 o'clock. Imagine if you've got to pick up kids at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock. It's just a nightmare. And there's no point in creating nightmares, and there's no point in experimenting just for the sake of it. We need to experiment when there's clear educational value. So we're not going to support that school. I call it faux flexibility, because parents don't have that kind of flexibility. I don't see the point of it. The other issues that concern us, for example, tertiary institutions running charter schools. Again, it comes to the heart of the matter of what education is about. Is education something that for children in primary school and secondary school level, is that the kind of education that universities offer? Universities offer a sophisticated lecture model based on individual research, and they are not best placed always to understand what primary school teachers do, which is not subject-based, it's child-based. And including secondary schools as well, I'd say, I hope, have a different way of teaching than universities. Being an expert on a subject at a tertiary level does not make you a school teacher. And so we have grave concerns that the charter school model being open to the tertiaries, who will be doing it because the Crown will give them lots of money to do it, that is actually an incursion into an educational space where they are not competent. And we reject that as an idea. We do not believe they are competent to run the schools that are basically for children whose learning journey is about collaborative interaction, about starting off with relationships-based learning. That's not what university study is all about, unfortunately. I wish it was. I'm a participatory educator. I'd love to see university. I was totally bored at university. I found it very, very narrow in its educational methodology, and I would love to see that, but I don't see that yet, and I don't think we should sacrifice our primary and secondary school kids to a model which is not about their stage of learning. Because as we all would agree here, everybody's at a different stage, they all learn differently, and that people do not learn when they're 5 years old. They have a different learning journey than when they're 25 or 35 or 45. And we really put these things at our peril. The other big issue I want to talk about in remaining seconds, but there will be more chances, I hope, is the home care business in early childhood. Because the Minister talked today about the participation rate, which she's saying is nearly 98%, nearly reached goal. The problem that we have is participation is not quality. And I've raised this issue at a number of select committee meetings and will continue to raise it. 98% participation sounds great. Where is the guarantee of quality? Because if you listen to the professionals, they will tell you that the early childhood sector cannot guarantee quality right across. And there is I've asked the Secretary of Education.
Tracy Martin.